all Dallas really needed to do was hang on to get to overtime, and it was all over. So in the end, sort of a little bit anticlimactic, but still thrilling nonetheless. Let's throw through 2 minutes and 30 seconds up on the clock, and let's start with that game last night. Got to be a pretty weird feeling, Mike, if you were in the Dallas Stars locker room post-game, because you did exactly what you set out to do in clinching a Stanley Cup playoff berth. Yet in some ways you sort of backed into it, entering the third period with a pretty comfy and cushy 3-goal lead, only to see it evaporate. And at the same exact time, almost simultaneously, I had the two games up on split screen last night, as the Vegas Golden Knights are losing their shootout to the Chicago Blackhawks and essentially doing themselves in, beating themselves, which made it a moot point that the Stars only, needed 1 point. They got it right there with the Golden Knights losing one. So sort of a weird feeling for Dallas, though, who now enters Friday night's game to close out their season with actually something to play for in terms of trying to avoid that second wild card spot, which would get them the Colorado Avalanche in the first round. How would you feel if you were in the Stars locker room, Mike?
It's a weird feeling because generally when you clinch a playoff spot, it's a pretty joyful moment. Like teams I've been on, they've wheeled beers into the locker room. You're cracking a few, you're having a good time. You're all excited because a lot of times it takes a win to get that spot in the playoffs to clinch it. And that's not what occurred here at all. I mean, Frank, I was the same way. I'm watching Vegas's game against Chicago. And I'm watching Dallas I'm watching the time run off of my phone. That's how I was doing it. I'm going, what's going on here? Vegas went 0 for 17 in their last 3 shootouts. Could not score. I couldn't believe it. And then Dallas, like you said, backing into it, you're up 3-0 against Arizona. And you just had a great second period. And then Dallas just packed it in the third, man. Like that's what I'd be more worried about was that they only had 3 shots on goal in the third period. They went down 5-on-3 at one point midway through. And sure enough, Barrett Hayton scores for Arizona to make it a 3-3 game. And then Dallas still had to kill penalties. And they had to work to get the game to overtime. So I don't know, man. I think it'd be pretty anticlimactic and you'd be kind of feeling a little bit of pressure in how you played if you were Dallas and really thinking, hey, this next game, we got to play well to go into playoffs with some momentum.
Yeah, probably a little bit of relief as well, I would imagine.
Mm-hmm.
Second night of back-to-backs, really emotional game on Wednesday against the Golden Knights, sort of put themselves in the exact position that they needed, 97 to 99% chance to get in. The math was clearly in their favor, and they probably got out to that lead thinking, okay, let's just, we'll take our foot off the gas here and coast to the finish line. But if you're in Vegas, Mike, walking off after that shootout seemed to be a pretty dejected bunch. I guess what I was more surprised about, Mike, was sort of the reaction and lack of energy from the Golden Knights to convert on a lot of the chances. You mentioned 0 for 17 on shootouts. What about the number of opportunities that they had in 3-on-3? Where was your Jack Eichel $10 million player to show up at the exact moment you needed him to? It seemed like his body language was off. A lot of things were missing from the Golden Knights over these last couple weeks.
I don't disagree with you at all. I mean, not just Jack Eichel scoring, but his defensive play left a lot to be desired for the Golden Knights. And they looked tired and they looked rudderless. You can be hurt, but when you're flying in from an emotional game like Dallas and you have to win the next night, you got to find energy. And it just wasn't there. Vegas just did not have what they needed to, and they couldn't convert, man. You're playing Kevin Lankinen, who's had a tough year as well, and net for Chicago, and they couldn't make it happen. So it wasn't surprising, but I think it was just kind of a microcosm of the entire VGK season.
Yeah, I agree. There's going to be a lot to unpack with the Vegas Golden Knights over the next days and weeks ahead. That end of season press conference, whenever it happens, is going to be interesting to see what kind of shakeups, if any, we see from the Vegas Golden Knights. I posted a story today on dailyfaceoff.com. 10 burning questions facing the NHL's 16 non-playoff teams. And number 1 on the list, will GM Kelly McCrimmon survive? It seems like